What's up everyone? Today we've got major news coming out of the ongoing crisis between Israel and Palestinian militant groups in Gaza. There are new revelations about frustrations boiling over behind the scenes between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. According to an explosive report from NBC News, Biden has been blasting Netanyahu with some extremely harsh language in private phone calls, calling him an gay hole on multiple occasions. This gives us a revealing window into the tensions playing out at the highest levels as the violence continues. I'll break down everything we know about Biden's anger towards Netanyahu, the key sources of disagreement right now, and what this means big picture. There's a lot to unpack here, so strap in for a juicy video. Background on the crisis. First, a quick recap for anyone not up to speed on the situation. Fighting between Israel and Palestinian militant groups in Gaza escalated in early August after Israel launched widespread airstrikes in response to a rocket attack. What began as tit-for-tat strikes has spiraled into a protracted conflict, with hundreds killed and parts of Gaza reduced to rubble under heavy Israeli bombing. Netanyahu has vowed to continue striking until there is a total quiet. Meanwhile, Palestinian militant groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad have fired thousands of rockets into Israel, killing 12 people so far. This is the worst violence between the two sides since 2014. Biden under pressure to seek ceasefire. As the civilian death toll mounts, Biden is facing growing pressure, including from Democrats in Congress, to push harder for a ceasefire and restrain Israel's military campaign. There have been tough conversations between Biden and Netanyahu, with Biden urging de-escalation and raising concerns over civilian casualties. But he's stopped short so far of openly demanding a ceasefire or condemning Israeli actions. Behind the scenes, these talks have apparently become extremely heated based on Biden's harsh language towards Netanyahu revealed in this new report. Biden slams Netanyahu as a whole in heated exchanges. According to 5 sources familiar with the calls, Biden has unloaded on Netanyahu, calling him an hole on at least 3 occasions. Whoa. He's said to be fed up with Netanyahu's refusal to adjust military tactics or agree to a ceasefire. The sources said Biden feels the bombing campaign has to stop, but Netanyahu keeps giving him hell. That's about as blunt as it gets. Biden sees Netanyahu as the main obstacle to ending the violence. He even refers to the Israeli leader simply as this guy, showing his disdain. Clearly these private discussions have gotten extremely heated, to the point Biden is cursing out Netanyahu and airing grievances about his conduct. For a US president to speak this way about a top ally is nearly unprecedented. It really gives us an unfiltered look at how much anger and frustration has built up behind the polite public rhetoric. Biden is pissed. Disagreements over Gaza strikes. Specifically, reports indicate Biden wants Israel to avoid hits on civilian targets and do more to protect innocents. He pushed Israel to cancel plans for a ground offensive in the densely populated city of Rafah. Biden also urged Netanyahu to embrace a ceasefire arrangement brokered by Egypt. But Israel has resisted, intent on degrading Hamas capabilities. For his part, Netanyahu says Israel is doing everything to avoid civilian deaths but that Hamas bears responsibility for locating rocket sites in populated areas. This gets at the core tension. Biden wants to limit harm to Palestinian civilians while Netanyahu argues strikes are required to eliminate the threat from militant groups. Broader implications. Stepping back, this clash reveals larger divides emerging in the strategic relationship between the US and Israel under Biden's leadership. There are fundamental disagreements over policies towards the Palestinians, negotiations with Iran, and other regional issues. Some see this crisis as a turning point, with the US more willing to exert pressure on Israel. This harsh criticism of Netanyahu would have been hard to imagine under Trump, who gave Israel almost free rein. At the same time, the strong language from Biden also shows the limits of US influence. For all his frustration, he hasn't been able to change Netanyahu's calculations about prosecuting the campaign against Hamas. Israel still enjoys staunch backing in Congress and domestic support. So while symbolic, Biden's rhetoric hasn't yet translated into different outcomes on the ground. Potential fallout. Nonetheless, this public airing of tensions could have fallout. It weakens trust between the leaders at a difficult time. Israel still relies heavily on US diplomatic and military support. Having these kinds of bitter arguments play out in the press could erode Biden's leverage. His language could also embolden critics of Israel in the Democratic Party. Some experts warn it may actually make Netanyahu more defiant as he tries to assert Israel's autonomy. Israel could become less willing to heed U.S. concerns on actions in Gaza or Iran. So while perhaps cathartic for Biden, his harsh words towards Netanyahu risk undercutting cooperation just when it's needed most to end the violence. Scenarios going forward. As we look ahead, it's unclear how long this flare-up may continue. But here are some possible scenarios. International pressure continues building on Israel, including from the U.S., leading to a ceasefire in the coming weeks. Though major damage is already done. Israel completes its military objectives, reaching some kind of understanding with Hamas that restores calm. Violence subsides but political issues remain unresolved. Conflict escalates further if Israel launches a ground incursion or Hamas unleashes more intense rocket barrages. Regional powers like Iran could increase supplies to Palestinian groups, prolonging strife. The situation remains extremely volatile. For now, Biden and Netanyahu are locked in a tense standoff as conditions deteriorate on the ground. Even if the fighting abates soon, political tensions exposed in this crisis will be difficult to resolve. The divides between Biden and Netanyahu reflect deeper dynamics that will persist beyond the current violence. The future of U.S.-Israel relations under this administration remains cloudy. Their close alliance will face serious tests in the months and years ahead. Conclusion. To wrap up, the revelations about Biden's explosive criticisms of Netanyahu give us a candid look at the state of affairs between the two leaders. It shows Biden's growing exasperation and the divisive issues driving this strained relationship. But harsh personal attacks also risk backfiring by alienating Israel. Biden will need to recalibrate and find the right balance between pressuring Netanyahu and preserving cooperation on regional security. The Middle East faces a perilous period ahead. U.S.-Israel alignment will be crucial for containing threats from Iran's proxies and navigating the turmoil unleashed by the Gaza crisis. This episode exposes the complexities at play for Biden in navigating America's role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at such a turbulent time. As always, the future remains uncertain. I'll be keeping a close eye on developments. Let me know your take in the comments.